Recording has started.
Okay, welcome to Lab 9. Question 1. Based on the life cycle theory, the country with the highest saving rates is going to be Middle-Eastern. The country with the highest rate of borrowing is going to be Jovenia, and the country with the highest rates of dis-savings is going to be Decropedia. Question 2. None of the above. Entrepreneurs demand loanable funds and savers supply loanable funds. Question 3. Stocks are going to typically be the riskiest. Bonds are corporate IOUs. Stocks give you an ownership share in a company. Bank accounts usually let you withdraw part of your investment at any time for any reason. Bank accounts also are a form of investment that usually spreads your money over the largest number of investment projects. Bonds are usually rated by private companies like Moody's or Standard and Poor's, and bonds are usually offered by the U.S. government as well as private corporations. Number 4, if savers don't feel safe putting their money in banks or buying bonds, the best way to sum up what's happening in the market for loanable funds is going to be B, which is the supply of savings falls and the interest rate rises.
For question 5, if the governments outlaw high interest rates and the ceiling is binded, it is likely that both A and B will occur. That is, the amount borrowed will increase because borrowers are protected from high interest rates, and B, it will fall because savers aren't willing to lend as much money at low interest rates. This will create an equilibrium between the demand for money borrowed and the supply of savings available. For question 6, if financial intermediation breaks down, investments will probably fall the most. This is because entrepreneurs will lack funds to buy investment goods, and so therefore investments are the most vulnerable. For question 7, part A, it is likely that these banks that lend out money at low interest rates to friends will be less successful than more ruthless banks. This is because they will be making less profit lending out at the low interest rates, and the savings that they pay for will be the same price. For part B, it is likely that these kinds of government-owned banks are still in business due to government subsidies. For question 8, when should consume an average or the average of the amount in her good years and her bad years, which is 90,000 and 20,000 respectively, and that average will be $55,000 per year. In her good years, she should save the amount she earns in that good year minus the average, which is $35,000 per year, and in her bad year, she should save the amount in that bad year minus her average, which is negative 35,000, or which means she should borrow 35,000, and this will balance out the savings.
For question 9, part A asks if the U.S. Congress abolishes a law that allows businesses to automatically enroll you in a savings plan, there'll be less people saving money, so there'll be less quantity of savings at a similar interest rate. So the curve is going to move to the left. And then if Americans always do things one day at a time, then the savings supply will shift again to the left because people aren't saving as much as they were before. So for question 10, part A, Emmanuel donates a little bit of money to 5 different charities. That would be an example of function 2. For part B, if Lauren's family if she's the one deciding which bank everyone will use, that will be function 1. For C, if Papa has a little cash on hand and he's willing to lend the money out, that'll be function 3. For part D, if George spends his time deciding which companies are worth investment, that would be function 1. For E, if he wants a good education, he'll take a variety of different classes. That's going to be function 2. And then for part F, if Francis subscribes to a consumer report to decide which washing machine to buy, that's going to be function 1. For question 11, if the banking system is not advanced enough to lend money for large investments, there'll be more entrepreneurs from rich families in poor countries because there's a high barrier to investment, and the poorer people won't be able to invest in these large projects because they won't be able to pool their money very easily like a bank would be able to do in a rich country. For question 12, if the interest rate is 11%, then Lexmark will take on Project B and Project C. This is because the break-even interest rate for Project B is 12, and then the break-even interest rate for Project C is 50. And then if the market interest rate is 6%, they'll take on all projects except for Project D because the break-even interest rate for all of the projects except for D is higher than 6%. And then for part B, or this is our graph organizing the data into a loanable demand funds.
So for number 13, we are asked if the government bonds and corporate stocks are substitutes, and they are, and this means that a rise in government borrowing would make it harder for businesses to sell new stocks. So for number 14, if you go to the graph of student loans, you see that the amount of loans owed in 2016 was approximately $1.358 trillion. And then for part B, looking at the same graph, you can see that between 2006 and 2020, the amount of outstanding student loans has been gradually and consistently increasing for the past 14 years. And then for number 15, according to the life cycle theory, it can be said that the United States is a young country, seeing as it's still in a heavy borrowing, is still engaging in heavy borrowing from other countries. Thank you. This has been our lab number 9. We appreciate you for listening.